Okay. Who has the edge here, bro?
Of who?
Kansas City's offense and Philadelphia's defense.
Two teams in the Super Bowl.
I mean, I could go with the team.
Sorry, yes. No, offense versus defense.
It's always Kansas City's offense because of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like, you got the best coach and the best quarterback, and that gives them an advantage. And remember, we saw it with Mahomes in these playoffs. He can win any way. He can win with his legs. He can win with his arm. He can win in a, shootout, or he can win another way. So I give them the advantage. And Reid is so huge in this, even though Philly's defense is great. And I go back to 2 years ago with the Super Bowl against the Eagles. These last 2 touchdowns by the Chiefs, we should have video of it. These last 2 touchdowns by the Chiefs, look at how wide open they just saunter into the end zone. That is Andy Reid drawing up great stuff, and we got the other one too. This is the one I think that gave him.
And the other one was kind of a broken play. The guys were lined up in the wrong place, and it still ended up.
Look at that. There's nobody even near him. So Andy Reid can scheme up some things that the Eagles, I think, will not have seen or won't be expecting. And I know people are saying, well, they got Vic Fangio now as the DC, and that wasn't against him. But Mahomes is 8-0 against Vic Fangio. Mm-hmm. And so I think Mahomes and Reid have seen everything he can throw at them, whereas they haven't seen everything that they'll throw at Philadelphia's defense. So I go with the Chiefs.
Yeah, so Kelsey talked about the communication and what a good job they do. And that's the problem with defending against Kansas City is they're constantly pressuring your communication. So they shift, they motion, they have multiple personnel groups, and all of those things combined. In the secondary, you've got to constantly be going in and out of calls. And in both those plays, you saw the short motion by the wide receiver, the defensive back starting to run because he thought he was going to go across, and then they bring him back out of the flat. So those plays make it really challenging. And then the second thing that's challenging is we talked about the Patrick Mahomes factor, not about how he performs in the clutch. That's an issue, but him being able to break, contain, have all those broken plays. He's scrambling in this AFC Championship game. It was the second highest rate of scrambling he's had in his whole career. So that becomes another pressure point on the defense. And I'd say that the final thing is they've gotten a bunch of guys back. So these other guys, whether it's D-Hop, Juju, Hollywood, Pacheco, they're getting guys back when other teams typically are going to that mode where they're trying to survive because so many guys are injured. They've added weapons, which is an issue.
They've added weapons to the healthiest they've been all year, and Xavier Worthy, who's been there all year, is the best he's been at any point.
Well, he had that ability to get all that experience.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the Fangio piece, Wilds, is the most interesting part of it. Because it is, to be fair, 8-0 is absolutely correct. It's also correct. A lot of those games came Chiefs-Broncos when Vic was the head coach of the Broncos, and the Chiefs won them all. But a lot of them were ugly and low scoring, you know what I mean? But here's why I think it's the key piece. Remember early in the year when it looked like defense was way ahead of the offense and people were on TV like, they got to ban the two deep safeties. You know what I mean?
I got that tape. Yeah.
Fangio obviously didn't create that, but Fangio popularized that about 4 years ago in response to Patrick and the Chiefs and the high-flying attacks. And then it became not that dissimilar to Tony Dungy's Tampa 2, where he kind of perfected and popularized something that then every team, or almost every team, you tell me if I'm talking out of school here, had a version of or different things to where it's like, oh, that works. Let's have it in our kind of quiver of arrows. Every team started doing a version of that. We gave Patrick 2 years to figure out how to be effective with it. And now the Chiefs have totally changed who they are offensively, partially because of personnel and partially because of how they're being played, where for 3 years in a row, including the MVP, the last MVP year, and the year they led the league in points, it's short passes. It's what they dink and dunk. It's a lot of that stuff, but it's very effective. So there is no quarterback in the league who has seen more repeatedly, more regularly, the exact type of defense Vic Fangio is going to be running because everyone was copying Vic Fangio's defense to stop Patrick.
Yes, but they're not Vic Fangio, and they don't have the weapons and the personnel that the Philadelphia Eagles have. So, I don't care that they were facing Fangio's defense that was run by, insert random team here, the Jacksonville Jaguars, like what the heck does that even mean? So just that's what we call a not take. But first off, isn't it funny how Nick is now saying that the Kansas City Chiefs have relied so heavily on a dink and dunk offense? Very interesting. And I love how Brew highlights, Patrick Mahomes getting these like easy, wide open walk-in touchdowns in a literal Super Bowl. Interesting. It's almost like as if Andy Reid is a really good coach. Interesting. Very interesting. Who has the edge here? Kansas City offense or Philly defense? I think it's without a doubt the offense, specifically because of coaching, and coaching matters that much. I do believe in the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and I do believe in Fangio, but I just don't think anyone can say that Fangio is a better defensive coordinator than Andy Reid is as an offensive coach. Now, where this comes into play is that the Eagles defense, when you go player for player, of course, Mahomes is an all-time great. Nobody is arguing against that. Take a deep breath. It's okay. And we now talk about some of these other players. You would say that the matchup is more favorable for the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, the coaching, in a way, kind of neutralizes that in a weird way. And I do agree that the Kansas City Chiefs team, they're obviously getting healthier. And now all together they have Pacheco, DeAndre Hopkins, Juju, Hollywood Brown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kareem Hunt now, like they added these extra pieces, and now they are at their healthiest. And technically the Philadelphia Eagles are not at their healthiest. Who knows exactly what it will look like, come game time. But, losing a player like Nakobe Dean, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I keep saying that this matchup is going to be so fascinating. I think it's a valid question and an interesting question to ask, who has the edge. But again, Nick just took it in a whole wildly weird, a different direction that just is like, just doesn't make sense. And he's like, and Patrick Mahomes learned how to go up against this offense. Right, nothing to do with Andy Reid scheming and game playing and and play calling. Right, it has nothing to do with that at all. Right, it has nothing to do with that. It's all Mahomes. Mahomes figured out exactly what he needs to do. Which is weird. But now this is interesting because this is why I love this channel so much. Having such smart people come to the comment section and just drop some knowledge. Just drop some knowledge. This is Travis O'Shea. You all know that I reference him a lot. He was in the comment section talking about, the point is that as a QB, Mahomes is not doing 5 and 7 step drops and reading 1 through 3 on 12-yard concepts like some other QBs. Read schemes and concepts are built off of quick reads and one and throw, hence the massive use of RPO, stick, spacing, dragon line, and screen concepts. And he continues, those quicker concepts and short routes have always been there. It's a part of Reid's philosophies as a coach and a play caller. Yes, after that first run in 2018 as Mahomes' first year as a starter where he threw for over 5,000 yards, Reid was on Mahomes about taking what the defense gives him. Mahomes talks about this and how much he wasn't a fan of it. It's almost like Andy Reid was coaching Patrick Mahomes. I know, it's a crazy concept. Go back and look at some of those playoff wins when they had both Hill and Kelsey. Just like you said, Mahomes used Hill many times for simple, shallow, and mesh concepts to get Hill for, a run after the catch. Yak. And he continues to go on. Also, it wasn't until after they lost that first playoff run when Reid had switched up his concepts even more so that Mahomes could read the coverages faster and easier. Just because Mahomes earlier in his career still took those long shots doesn't mean Mahomes wasn't missing them or actually just passing in the shallows to take deeper shots. It's a little harder to read on my screen because it's smaller. Hopefully it's big for you guys. Also, defenses as a whole 6 years ago really started to play more too high pre-snap and quarters post-snap to deal with the fast amount of RPOs and spread offenses taking the NFL by storm. Andy Reid runs and has been running his variation of the West Coast offense, which is predicated on using short throws to get the ball to the guys on the run and also get the back more involved in the passing game. So yeah, just all pretty interesting stuff. Then I have one more thing that I'll read. I also got it. Next time I read these things, I have my screen, so it like all the blue light is filtered, so it's like so dark and dim, and I'm like, I always got to remember to like undo this because it's so much harder for me to read. But this is something that I thought that he said was really good as well. It doesn't say his name on there, but he said this. The one thing I don't know why Mahomes fans do not talk about more is how good Mahomes has become with his quick release while now having his body lined up often than before. Also, how he has been able to use his eyes so well on these quick concepts to get those second-level defenders to vacate a hole has been super impressive. If you are a Mahomes fan, that is by far what he has been able to excel at that over the years. So yeah, I really liked, Travis O'Shea just said that yesterday in the comment section based off of a video that was posted on Monday, I believe. And so I wholeheartly agree with what he's saying. I made a joke. It's like what I attempt to try to say, but he does so in a much more technical way than I ever could. He's a fan of making things, like, as he said, more complicated and technical. And I'm the opposite. I like to simplify and make things less technical. But sometimes I just think when you drop some wisdom like that, it just, reading it verbatim is the way to go. But that's, that's a long-winded way of saying, first off, give credit to Andy Reid. It's okay. It's okay to give credit to Andy Reid. That's number one. It's also okay to give credit to Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is a really special quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's okay. And that's where I think the edge lies because of what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will be able to do. But with the Philadelphia Eagles defense, the roster and Fangio are obviously great. It's the best in the NFL right now, currently. I think it's fair to give the edge to the Kansas City Chiefs offense because of all the things that they laid out, what I laid out, etc. But again, some of the explanation is where I kind of take issue with. Not to mention the Kansas City Chiefs offense definitely has a deeper depth of experience. Of course, Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy, at this point, Pacheco, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, these are guys that have been in the league for, for the most part, a long, long time. A lot of the defense for the Philadelphia Eagles, like, it isn't. And this is the biggest game that they've ever played. And this is just another game for Andy Reid, Mahomes, etc., etc. Of course, you have a couple of these random stragglers in the offense, like a Worthy, etc. But they're still kind of in this bubble with just insane levels of experience. And I think that goes a long way. I really, really do. And I'm just not going to say that I believe that Fangio, and again, sorry, Eagles fans, if you were a betting person, you would bet that what's more likely to happen, that Andy Reid would out-coach Fangio than Fangio out-coaching Andy Reid, which is why I think it's the players more than anything. Because I do think that Fangio will still come up with a great game plan. And even if the game plan's not working, I believe that he will be able to adjust at halftime. Like, I trust him to be able to make some of those moves and some of those decisions. But to me, it just falls so much more on the players than the coaching staff itself. Whereas I think it's a little bit more reverse because, again, as we even saw in some of those highlights, Andy Reid is a genius at putting those Kansas City Chiefs players in positions to succeed. Now, if those players also elevate even more, if they even need to or are given the opportunity to, then again, when you have greatness going up against greatness, then that's where you really need the Eagles players to step up, right? If Travis Kelce kind of gets open, with space to run, it's closing that out on him and really making sure he goes nowhere. In a lot of ways, think of the example of when the Baltimore Ravens got the ball to Derrick Henry. It was like, we've seen many, many times that Derrick Henry blows past, whatever defender's on him, or just kind of barrels through him and gets, at least 7, 8, 9, 10 yards, whatever it is. But what did we see? We saw man-to-man, and I don't mean man-to-man coverage. I just mean like, I'm a man, you're a man, man-to-man, like, let's get after it. It is just who wants it more in this moment in a lot of ways. And Cooper DeJean's like, not today, son, not today. Right? Like that's when I talk about players stepping up for the Philadelphia Eagles. More so than just Fangio's like awesome. Can you say, are we really going to leave this game and just say, man, Fangio had Patrick Mahomes just completely lost. He had no idea where to go with the ball. He looked uncomfortable the whole time. I don't see that happening. I just personally do not see that happening. And even if it's happening in the first quarter or the first handful of drives, I just believe Andy Reid's going to be like, all right, we're going to do this now and this, and this, and this. So that's why, to me, it just becomes so much more of the will and the execution itself, I suppose, for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's why it's like when I try to neutralize that, who has the edge, to me, that's when it's going to be, who will have technically the better game plan and the better ability to make, more adjustments and in-game decisions. To me, that's more reliable than brute force. And again, it's not to say that the Eagles defense relies on brute force. It's just I'm at a loss for a better way to kind of necessarily phrase it when we're just talking about, the players themselves. But at the same time, and again, this is why, I always talk about multiple things can be true. It's not to say that just because you have a great coach and a great game plan, you can just win with anyone. Like, you still need, obviously, like a floor of talent, which the Kansas City Chiefs clearly have. I don't think that Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes, for that matter, are just dragging this offense with just a bag of bones here. Like that's the thing. And I don't think this defense for the Philadelphia Eagles are just amazing just because of how great the talent is, and that Fangio is kind of dead weight either. Like, and I used this in my previous video where it's just kind of like, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, the coaching for the Kansas City Chiefs are 10. And for the roster for the Philadelphia Eagles, on the defense, we'll just stick with this, is a 10. Now the coaching for the Eagles is probably, and again, this is a made up number, maybe an 8, and maybe for the Kansas City Chiefs, the roster is an 8. Maybe it's a 7 or 8 for both sides. So then again, the question is can Fangio be an 8 a coach, and can the Kansas City Chiefs be a 7 roster? If it is a 7 offense, then I think advantage goes Philly. But if they get up to an 8, then it's kind of like, okay, what do you do with that? It's kind of the best way, at least right now, that I can try to kind of relay kind of how I see it and really the importance of coaching and just what it can do. And it's why I really could appreciate when what's his face? John Middlecoff talked about, especially after I think it was after the Rams-Eagles game. And I think it was pretty much, he was saying it in support of the Rams and just talking about that when you have great coaching, no matter what your roster is, you will have a chance. And when you have great coaching, you can win more often. You can beat better rosters more often than a better roster with bad coaching can beat the other. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, it's if you have a better coaching, but an inferior roster, you are more likely to beat a team that has a better roster but not as good as a coach. And the truth and definitely more than if you have a better roster but you're going up against great coaching and you have bad coaching, you're not going to win that game more often than not. So it's just such a massive advantage to have to win the coaching battle. And again, it's not the end all be all. It's not to say that Andy Reid can go take, a JV team and start winning Super Bowls. Like, I'm not making that argument either. You still do need that baseline level of talent, which the Kansas City Chiefs clearly have. But can this roster for the Eagles step up and make the plays? Can they get that tackle on Derrick Henry? Can they disrupt what Lamar Jackson wants to do? Can they keep and contain Jaden Daniels from going off on any big runs? When there is a big catch with open space, can they force that fumble like they did against the Commanders? I'm specifically using those examples of what the Eagles continue to do. That's not necessarily Fangio. That is when it's time for the players to be the players, right? Like, that is the time when it's time for me to be like, it's time. Fangio put me here, and now it's my job to get what needs to be done. And it's just like, that's what we're going to see, man. That's what we're going to find out. So yeah, I'm excited. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles? Who do you think has the edge? The Kansas City offense or the Philadelphia defense? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way. Let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.